Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Faux Genius. No, you shouldn't confuse us with the hit TV show, Joe Genius. We're just a cheap copy, just like most of primetime TV. Today, we'll be talking about a type of chemical reaction called synthesis. Synthesis is when two compounds join together to create one compound. Alright, hop on board. Let's start with the first video. For this particular reaction to take place, we must first introduce the aluminum foil with heat, the catalyst, and then introduce the aluminum foil to the chlorine. Here we see the reaction begin to take place. And don't be confused. Just because the aluminum and chlorine are giving off heat and energy doesn't mean that this is a combustion reaction. In fact, this reaction is actually synthesis. This reaction is synthesis because when the reaction is finished taking place, we're left with aluminum chloride, which is a mix of aluminum and chlorine, and no byproducts. Some synthesis reactions release heat when they take place. These reactions are known as exothermic reactions. An exothermic reaction often requires heat as a catalyst before the reaction takes place. One of the keys with an exothermic reaction is that the reaction will almost always give off more heat or energy than it requires to get the reaction started. Check out this next clip to see what I mean. To begin our reaction, we must first mix iron and sulfur together. The iron and sulfur don't react at room temperature, which means that we should introduce our catalyst. In this case, we will be using heat. To introduce this heat to our mixture, we will use a glass rod, which is preheated here. Once the glass rod is sufficiently heated, we introduce it to our mixture. As you can see, it reacts magnificently. This is an exothermic reaction because it gives off heat. Some exothermic reactions give off more heat than they require to get the reaction started. This is a pristine example of both exothermic reactions and synthesis, as the iron and sulfur combine to create iron sulfate, and no byproducts. In this next clip, our chemist combines oxygen and sulfur to create a reaction. This reaction should take place all the time, wouldn't you think? Because the oxygen and sulfur in the air are always in contact. Wrong! No, because in order for some reactions to take place, you have to have pure compounds, and the oxygen that we find all around us in our air isn't pure. That's one of the reasons why synthesis is such a well-used chemical reaction in industry. Industry uses synthesis because of its nearly 100% reproducible rate and the fact that it is able to be used to create mass amounts of compounds. Here, let me show you. Begin this synthesis reaction just like we began all the others, by introducing our catalyst, in this case, heat. However, take notice, because this reaction does not begin until it is placed in the pure oxygen. The oxygen all around us doesn't work. Once the reaction takes place, we see a blue energy given off, while the sulfur and oxygen form together to create sulfur oxide. The reaction is rather long and is pretty cool to look at, so feast your eyes. This is another example of an exothermic reaction, and it is also a synthesis reaction, because the oxygen and sulfur bond together to create sulfur oxide. It would not be a synthesis reaction if this did not take place, and there have to be no byproducts. A synthesis reaction can also have more than two compounds being mixed together. Thanks for watching this episode of Faux Genius, and don't forget to tune in next week when we watch random fireworks explode, or we go over decomposition, one of the two.